40% of the human brain become very introspective. You become more aware about your inner self when you close your eyes. Default mode network gets activated in our brain when we are doing nothing. We have the power as a human to increase the effectiveness of the meditation. The people who stick around till 20th tone were a really good meditative practice. Brain itself does not have any sensory neuron. Cyclic hyperventilation, just the breathing pattern which we do, whether it's the breathing, exhale, controlling your breath and being mindful of it. Default mode network setting, as I mentioned, this mode of network becomes so active that our mind starts to wander. Hello and welcome everyone, and welcome to the very new series of our Arube podcast, which we have given a name of Exploration with Neha. As we discussed last time, we wanted to add something new, something refreshing, which not only could interview other people but also, give us a approach in life in whichever domain we want to, whether we talk about meditation, financial literacy, content creation, we talk about money, we talk about personal issue, personal relation, where I'll be able to create a platform and share things with you, where together we can build a strong community and learn from with each other. So welcome to the continuation series of Science of Meditation. I'm not sure how many of you have remembered what we've discussed in last episode, but for a quick revision for those of you who are for the first time over here, our first podcast, we plan to do this podcast in two different categories. The first part of it, which we have already released, the links will be in the bio, so you can go and check it out, because that is very, very important before you actually come on to the second part of this podcast. So the first part of podcast, we discussed about different signs of meditation. We talked about different brain network area which is active during meditation, right from this area which we call prefrontal cortex, and then coming on to the insulin, which is somewhere in the center, which is responsible for the sensory action, to ACC and all of those things. We also talked about difference between introspective and extrospective awareness, because these two things plays a very, very important role before we come onto the path of meditation. We also talk about different form of it. It could be a meditation by closing our eyes, it could be a meditation extrospectively, let's say while keeping our eyes open, or a walking meditation. For those of you who are trying to establish the fact how to meditate, I feel before we come on to that particular stage, we should ask ourselves how long we should meditate consistently, because consistency is a very, very important part, plays in the whole meditative process. Come on, just like any other particular exercise. So let's say if you're someone who just meditate once in a week, so you should definitely set aside 25 to 30 minutes of meditation for it to be very, very effective. Let's say if you are setting aside around 5 to 10 minutes almost every day, then you can be very flexible with your routine. You can have a 5 minute of meditation or even a 3 meditation of meditation. Some people actually say you could even have a 1 minute of meditation. So it's not about the duration of that particular portion, it's more about how consistently you are doing a certain thing. There is a case research study that 40% of the human brain, as I already mentioned in the last podcast, become very introspective, as in you become more aware about your inner self when you close your eyes. Now why is that? Because most of it is contributed to our vision. So just think about it in a very simple way. If we shut down our eyes and just sit, we just closed all the outside aspect of the different things which is happening around us. Hence, automatically it increases the introspectiveness of our nature. Now you will ask me, what about the people with no vision, the people who can't see? So the same process of vision, what we can see or what we can't, or even for the people who can't see, the same process is transferred into an auditory process. So what do I mean by auditory process? The people who can't see with zero vision, they have the same kind of feeling, but through the years. Even there is a very deep research study that people who put who people with zero vision and who put noise cancellation headphone can actually, once they sit in a maybe a very silent room or with a noise cancellation headphones, they will have a similar kind of shift, a similar kind of body shift, just as similar to the person who's closing the eyes and sitting for the meditation. So we have to sit back and observe whether we tend to shift toward more introspective awareness or an extrospective awareness. But what does it even mean to be an introspective or an extrospective? I mean, we are aware neurally. We know if we are more into introspectiveness, our insula and ACC, that is the network part of our brain, gets activated. But that is not very helpful, is it? That is just a fact. We have to go behind the process of it. There was a classic case study which tend to talk about default mode network. Now keep that in mind. Default mode network is a very, very important segment. So, I mean, even though it sounds very funny, default mode network gets activated in our brain when we are doing nothing, right? So when we are literally doing nothing, we are just bored, our default mode network in the brain, it's actually a part inside the brain, it gets activated. That's where our mind start to wander. That's why the term like mind wandering has actually been invented. So just to give you a proper insight into the whole concept of default mode network segment, just think of our thought. Let's say we are present into a particular moment, and we can split our thought into two different spotlight, into two different area. We could be eating and thinking about someone, or we could be walking and maybe feeling a stomach ache. A human being, and you can observe it also after today, a human being at one time maximum can have two thoughts. It's very, very hard to have third thought simultaneously. It's not very impossible. You people can achieve it with practice. But just like the topic of perception, which we discussed about last time, that you could be only thinking about two certain things at one point of time. Thoughts also work in exactly the same manner, that you could be focusing on one thing at one particular time. So there was this case study, people in the present moment, let's say whatever I'm doing in the present moment, I could be thinking about something which is not happening right now, and I'll be really, really unhappy in that particular current moment. So most of you will be thinking that, okay, fine, if I'm doing something and if I'm thinking something else, maybe something related to future or even past, which is very unhappy, obviously I'm going to feel sad. But that is not the case. To your surprise, even if, let's say, I'm in the current moment and I'm thinking something very pleasant, very happy, even then I'm going to feel very unhappy in that particular state of mind. That is why there is a saying, wandering mind is an unhappy mind. This research absolutely justify why meditation practices are so important in our life. Even though most people think, as I told you earlier, that meditation practice just is a practice where we close our eyes and do all of those kind of things. But in real case scenario, meditation is not a divorce from life. It's completely opposite of that. Meditation is, I feel, is one of the essential keys in terms of enhancing your focus, improving your creativity, becoming better at remembering things, or even improving your mood swing. So it's a part of integration of your lifestyle. It's not just a yogic practice of sitting down and closing your eyes. We have the power as a human to increase the effectiveness of the meditation. In more scientific word, we can change the neuroplasticity if we work against the grain. Yes, so whatever our default setting is, let's say if I'm a very hyper person and I work against it in the different case scenario, I'll give an example on that. We can actually increase the effectiveness of the meditation practice. I hope you remember, just to give you a small insight what I mean by that. In last episode, I mentioned that meditation is not a practice of who can focus for a longer period of time. In fact, some people think that I have such a laser precision focus. It's just not that. Meditation is a practice of refocusing back very quickly. For example, I'm meditating, I'm just sitting and I'm thinking about something, how fast I can come back from that particular thought. The people who can master this skill on a very advanced level, they are very good in meditative practices, hence their focus ability, creativity is on very high level. There was a experiment in Japan, just to prove this particular theory, where they got I think around 50 different people. So these people have a different meditative capacity based on the number of years they have focused on. So all of these people, this 50 group of people, they made sure they did an experiment obviously on them. So they played 20 different ringtones, 20 different tunes. The people who were with higher meditative practices, they could hear all of those 20 tones, right? The people like me who don't have that level of focus capacity got lost by the time 11th and 12th tone came. So let's say if I'm on 11th and 12th tone and it's ringing, by 12th tone they started thinking about something else, which is natural, which happens with most of us. Now you must be thinking the people who sticked around till 20th tone were a really good meditative practitioner, but that is not the case at all. Those people, as I mentioned earlier, they were exiting in a thought process and they were coming back quickly again and again and again, and with time they become very, very super effective in a way that they can go and they can come back to that particular state of mind in that current case scenario very effectively, hence they called a better meditator, right? So it's all the practice and the focus of things, whatever you're doing, and the same thing applies in your day-to-day work life. For example, if you're doing something and while we are doing that work, we feel like opening an Instagram and going to on different place. So you think the people who can focus better, they don't go on Instagram. That's not the case scenario. They just go but come back very quickly. So it's your ability, how fast you can go and come back in the same way. Now, talking about meditation, when we discussed about different structural part of the brain, so I told you there's a prefrontal cortex, there's a ACC, then there's a insulin. There was one more neuron network inside the brain, which we called the third eye. Third eye here, that is in middle of the brain. There's no technically a third eye. As I said, if there is a third eye, somebody is having a third eye, then it's a problem, it's a concern, then maybe we need to check a doctor. But third eye is a very simple name given to a neurostructure we call pineal gland. I think most of you also heard about it. Pineal gland, before I give a brief, so I'll tell you how our brain works. So this is our brain, and both sides of the brain you tend to have mirror symmetric representation of the same thing. So you have a prefrontal cortex on the left, you have exactly same thing happening on the right. So in a very simple way, whatever you have on the left side of brain, you're going to have exactly same thing on the right side of the brain. But there is an exception to that. That exception is our third eye or this pineal gland area, because it is at the center of our brain. We can't technically see it, which create melatonin. What is melatonin? There are so many supplements also around melatonin. People who have insomnia, who can't sleep at night and who have very disturbed sleep, they lack in melatonin. We can obviously artificially increase melatonin. There's no much proven theory around it, but there are of course supplement around melatonin. We can take it and we can have a better night's sleep. But melatonin get released when it gets dark. So when it gets dark, our brain automatically releases this level of melatonin, and it helps us make us fall asleep. That's why people who lack melatonin, they are not so good sleeper, or they have very disturbed sleep. Of course you can take supplement, or you can work on your third eye capacity. That's another case scenario. Now, I'll give you a very interesting fact that why this funny name of third eye came up, or what exactly it works. So it's called third eye. One of the many reasons is because it responds to light. So birds and snakes, they also have a third eye, but snake have a hole in the skull, right? Because third eye respond to the light. So snake have a hole in the skull. So whenever a light comes in, it directly penetrates through the skull of the snake. So when it goes through the hole in the skull where light can directly penetrate, in birds they don't have a hole in their skull, of course, but they have a very thin skull where light can penetrate directly through it, and through that bird actually communicate. They get to know what time of day it is, whether it's morning or evening, or what time of day and year, and that translate in the hormonal signal like melatonin release. In human the pineal is deep to the surface, and light cannot reach directly to it, because if it does, then you have a serious issue, of course. Now, from 1,000 years it has been believed that third eye is a seat of our consciousness. Again, it's a very difficult and controversial topic to understand, but if I just put it in a very simple word, and it is also very interesting because third eye is part of our prefrontal cortex, and if we remove this area, let's say if this area is removed, people will become very reflexive. What do I mean by that? People will become very good, let's say, in aiming a gunshot at a particular distance. They'll be so good at it, their reflexes will be so good, they'll be just as soon as they'll get an opportunity, their accuracy will go through the roof. They'll become hyperactive and accurate in everything. They'll essentially will become machinery, they'll become like a robot. So if we remove this part of prefrontal cortex, people will become super accurate, but they will become like a machine. Hence, their ability to distinguish between enemy and friend will completely go down. They'll be very good at shooting the target, their accuracy will be very precise, but they won't be able to differentiate in between right and wrong, friends or enemy. So they'll just become an emotionless robot. So I hope you understood the whole point of focusing back on third eye and the prefrontal cortex. It's not just a part of one particular concept. So many of our performance, our behavior, our certain part of thing actually depend on it. Now, why does that happen? Because brain itself does not have any sensory neuron. I mean, you must have heard so many times, when we do brain surgery, we can keep our skull wide open and a person won't feel a thing. Literally, a person won't feel a thing. So the sensory neuron is a different portion of the whole neuron network system. For example, we are having stomach ache, we feel it. All of those things happen, but when we do any operation on our brain, we're not going to feel a thing. That's why it is very important to be aligned with the third eye and rest of the ACC and insulin portion along with our cortex. So that is the whole idea of it. So while keeping our focus on third eye, and something else will happen. So all the feelings of or no feelings of brain, so to say, it start to grow, and it grows an awareness of a very high set, where we can actually feel and realize things and be aware of our own body and thoughts and memory. Normally, because they are very unorganized, we normally get random and intrusive thought. Most people in their head, a lot of them, they're not really present in what they are doing, because most people are very introspective biased, because they are focusing more on what is happening inside of their body. So being mindful and aware can enhance one's level of happiness. That's why pattern of breathing, things like pattern of breathing plays a very important role. There is even a word for it we call cyclic hyperventilation. It's a very big word, but it means very simple thing. It's all big inhales and exhales and all of those process. So all of these scientific knowledge plays a very important role in terms of understanding those concepts, putting a real life application to it. So it all starts from understanding the brain neural system, going on to the introspective and extrospective part. Cyclic hyperventilation, just the breathing pattern which we do, whether it's the big exhale, controlling your breath and being mindful of it. Another form which we actually discussed is the ability to refocus back on the thing, because that plays apparently a very important role. Another pointer which we discussed today was on digital mode network, default mode network setting. Default mode network setting, as I mentioned, it gets activated when we are doing nothing, absolutely nothing. When we are bored, this mode of network becomes so active that our mind start to wander. So when we meditate, all of these sensory portion come together, align, and actually help us in terms of improving our focus and ability. So I know it's a lot of information to go through, it's a lot of thing to process through, but let's just take up one step at a time. At today's pace, where everything is going very fast and we are going through a lot of emotion, good and bad, and feeling a certain way, and it's very, very important that we take care of our mind and body and not just follow things blindly, right? Just because some guru is doing it or just because it's cool to do it. We should understand the science part of it, that what is it, what does even these words mean, what is the logic behind it. And if you have an biological understanding of your body, whether it's a brain or a liver or heart or your gut health, you'll be able to choose the right kind of exercise, the right kind of supplements, the right kind of meditative practices, and it will actually help you. We see in market there are so many supplements. I mean, if you are lacking different vitamins, you take multivitamins, you take omega-3 because apparently fish oil is better, or you are taking B12 or magnesium because you lack of that, or you're taking melatonin because you could not sleep on the time. Even though drug industry is helping us in a way to give a shortcut to our problem, but believe me, when we can be aligned with our mind and body, the dependency of the drug, because again it's all a part of capitalism, dependency on drugs will reduce down drastically, and will have better clarity in our mind that what is it that we actually want to do in our life. So watch it once, watch it twice, share it with your friends, and I'm sure if you go through it, take a diary, start making notes, and see where do you fit from this to this bandwidth, where do you fit yourself. So that's all today from my end. If you like the podcast, please don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends. And even though this is something new we are trying, we need your feedback and honest feedback on it, and we'll try to bring as many new difficult topic which people have generally a very less knowledge about to you, so that we can learn together and build a community. So that too sent from my side. Thank you everyone. Bye.